This show is brought to you by Rotary International. Service above self. Welcome to a new show of AhornTV. And I welcome Mark von Schellwitz. You are the Vice President at CRFA. Maybe you quickly explain CRFA?
That's correctly. We're the largest hospitality industry organization in Canada. We've got over 30,000 members, and we represent people from all sectors of the food service industry, from caterers to pub owners to quick service to fine dining. So it's a very broad and wonderful industry, and I'm happy to be able to represent it.
Great, thank you. And Waldemar Bilski, you're chef, I know that.
Yes, I just finished building my own facility where I'm doing catering, gourmet catering, and also studying in March my cooking classes.
Oh.
So and down the road we want to follow also a direction where we're going to be airing on online cooking segment and going towards a live cooking show.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And since you mentioned that, you have also an event happening, an exhibition in when?
January 27th, 28th is our BC Food Service Expo. Mass, I know you've been there before, and it's the largest hospitality trade show on the West Coast, and we have a Trends Breakfast, which is interesting with our topic today that we do on the second morning of the show, and we attract about 5,000 food service professionals, managers, owners, chefs, in the 2 days coming through the show. And we also have some great competitions. We have the BC Chef Competition, Junior Chef Competition, and the BC Chinese Chef for the Year competition. So it's a wonderful meeting place for the industry, and I look forward to seeing you there again this year.
Very cool, absolutely. And since we talk about exhibition, we have produced a small clip for you. Let's check it out and then discuss about this topic.
Also als allererstes fällt mir natürlich bei Kanada immer ein, große Weiten, klares Wasser, herrliche Landschaften, Einsamkeit und somit irgendwo auch Ruhe und Bodenständigkeit. Das ist das allererste, was ich irgendwo immer mit Kanada verbinde. Und mit den Lebensmitteln natürlich auch in die Reinheit, also ein kanadischer Wildlachs oder die Fische in diesem kalten Gewässer, das ist natürlich mit Sicherheit großartig, da kann einfach nichts verkehrt dran sein. Ich bediene mich natürlich den kanadischen Produkten in erster Linie, denn der Kochstil selber ist ja von Land zu Land unterschiedlich und es macht jetzt wenig Sinn, vielleicht 1:1 kanadische Gerichte mit nach Deutschland zu nehmen oder zu präsentieren. Das heißt, ich nehme einmal natürlich Bison, ein großartiges Produkt, was man hier in Deutschland kennt, aber natürlich immer noch so eher eine Nischensituation hat. Und das bringe ich ein bisschen auf großer Bühne und das wird gebeizt mit vielen Aromen und dazu gibt es dann ein Cranberry Gel, also das ist eine neue Form, Cranberries im Grunde auch zu präsentieren. Ich werde mit Ahornsirup und Pfeffer und verschiedenen Aromaten da das Ganze noch leicht übergießen, so nappieren. Ja, und dann mache ich übrigens noch was mit einem Wildlachs, mit einem kanadischen, auch hier, weil wir natürlich bei einer Genussmesse sind, mit einem Produkt, das relativ viele kriegen können, weil der kanadische Wildlachs ist eben einfach greifbar. Und den frittiere ich raus und zwar so als Praline geformt. In der Mitte ist er schön glasig, mit Gewürzen natürlich angereichert. Also das ist ein Traum. Also es ist schwer, einen Tipp zu geben, weil man natürlich knallhart sagen muss, die Produkte vor Ort kenne ich natürlich zu einem gewissen Prozentsatz, aber den großen Überblick habe ich so nicht. Aber faktisch ist, jedes Land hat nun mal seine Spezialitäten und ich glaube, dass wir ja in Deutschland das, was wir hier schon heimisch nennen und diese Art zu kochen, die passt, glaube ich, sehr gut zu Kanada und jetzt müsste man nur hergehen und vielleicht das ein oder andere Produkt einfach auswechseln. Also wir in Deutschland lieben natürlich gewisse Würste. Warum geht man nicht her und sagt, ob das jetzt ein, sagen wir mal, Rinderschinken ist oder was vom Schwein, gibt es ja auch vom Elch, ja, ist ja kein Problem. Oder genauso eben auch vom Bison. Das heißt, ich glaube, dass es heimische Produkte in Anführungsstrichen nach deutscher Arbeit dort auch gibt. Und das ist immer perfekt. Also das kann ich empfehlen. Das Schöne an dem Land ist ja, dass es alles hat. Und natürlich muss man unbedingt die Städte erleben, denn nur wenn du die Städte wirklich mitbekommst mit ihrem Rhythmus, kriegst du auch irgendwie so ein Gefühl von den Menschen, die da sind. Aber das drückt natürlich immer ein bisschen weil eine Stadt natürlich auch der Metropolsituation immer ein bisschen sicher anpassen muss. So, und der zweite Eindruck, und da freue ich mich auch natürlich drauf, das ist die Weite der Natur. Also wirklich diese großartigen Seen, diese Flüsse, diese Landstriche einfach zu erleben, das ist ein anderes Klima. Also ich finde, das hat alle Welten, die man eigentlich so sehen will, in einem Land vereint.
Okay, we are back now at AhornTV, and the topic today is everything about food, style, trend, I would say, right? What do you think about this clip we just watched? Waldemar, I mean, this was now Germany, and don't they have a little bit the romantic type of view of Canada?
They do, but as soon you immigrate to Canada, like I did 3 years ago, straight from Germany, I mean, I've been living in the States for over 7 years, so I grew up with this West Coast flair and West Coast style of preparing meals. And it's a bit different, right? And I would say in a positive way. We experience more the freshness, the waters. We are directly on the Pacific side, so we get the fresh salmon, we get the fresh berries, the blueberries, the cranberries on this side, and also different varieties of beefs, like the bison, for example, I mentioned in the clip, which is fantastic, right? So it's just different. In Germany or in Europe, we have different kind of varieties of beefs, cheeses, wines, and especially in BC, I would say it's much more fresher, and it's accessed directly to the farmers, which is great.
It just comes into my mind. I mean, we had just Fukushima a year ago approximately,
Yes, yeah.
the disaster. And we don't know yet the flow of the salmon, for example. They talked about the fresh wild salmon in Canada. Doesn't it come from Japan?
That's a good question. That's a good question that I would say not many of us, of the chefs, think about it. And we have a choice. We have a choice between the wild and the farm-raised, right?
I mean, do you have something like a Geiger counter when you check the fish?
That would be nice, but no, we don't.
No, of course
no, we
not.
don't.
Yeah, I know. No. But I've heard, seriously, I mean, I was making now a joke, but I've heard about these cases with the tuna, that some tuna, you have to be very careful. Is that correct?
Well, certainly, I think that's a lot of questions we're getting from chefs right across the country right now. And this year, as we mentioned the Food Service Expo at our Trends Breakfast, we're having a panel discussion on world food supply and world food safety and what sort of measures are in there. You have the whole XL Foods things. And I think a lot of people in the industry are kind of concerned. I can control food safety and I can control the quality once it gets to my kitchen. But what happens to the food from the farm to when it gets to my kitchen? And people want to know that their food is safe, and chefs want to know that their food is safe getting there. So we've got a couple of speakers coming in to talk about food safety worldwide and some of the changing trends on world food supply. Like you say, with the oceans, you know, you've got the ocean-wise and you've got ocean sustainability, and that's a big food trend that's coming up. But once again, you want to make sure that whatever's coming into your kitchen is going to be safe to serve to your guests. So you want to make sure that that's the case, and we'll be addressing that. And the whole world food supply is changing. It's evolving all the time. So I think it's going to be a very interesting topic at our show. But I certainly think, though, in general, the industry does an exceptionally good job at food safety and making sure that their guests are getting top quality food. We've got a system in Canada, in this part of Canada anyways, where all your food inspections are online, and we've got an excellent track record of making sure our food is safe. And especially now that when you're dealing with smaller farmers and everything like that, I think that people have to be really, really vigilant in making sure that whatever is coming from there meets their own stamp of approval as far as quality and safety is concerned as well. So that's an interesting trend in the industry for sure.
If I compare labels in Europe, and of course my expertise is mainly from out of Germany, we often don't write the exact ingredients in there. It's kind of very generally mentioned on some level, on some labels here. Is that correct, Walter?
That's correct. That's the reason why, myself included, I try to purchase raw ingredients as much as possible. I try to stay away from processed items, right? Because mostly there's a certain percentage that which is the FDA in the States or the Canadian Food Agency doesn't have to post on the ingredients labels. And it can be pretty much anything, right? Which has to be under a certain percentage, right? So the best thing for me is just stay away. Just if you make a sauce from scratch.
But it's of course more expensive.
It is more expensive, it tastes better. And I think that's where the trend goes. I see it every day.
And it doesn't last long. That comes on top of that. That's why you need processed food. Otherwise it doesn't last, right? If you want to produce it for the next 3 weeks, so for 1 month, it won't last if you have guacamole freshly made,
but
as an example.
That's where the trend is going to paying a bit more and get the freshness. Right.
And that follows right within what our Canadian Chef Survey found last year, is in the top 10 of all the trends going on. I mean, you see organics, you see healthiness, you see local cheeses, all throughout those top 10. There's a lot of gluten-free, all those different things. There's a lot more focus on health and organics and getting back to nature. Yeah. But as you point out, that's very well and good if you're a high-end restaurant that can source directly from farmers enough to feed a small restaurant. But if you're a big food service chain, there's no way that you can actually source all that stuff directly from a farmer. You're still going to deal with the food supply system, and you have to make sure that those checks and balances are there. So,
yeah, I mean, but a lot of young people nowadays, they spend most of their income in clothing and food. So I asked myself, with the current economic situation, who can afford paying so much? I mean, if you go into an average restaurant here in Vancouver, Vancouver is of course an exception a little bit. It's quite expensive. If you go to Montreal, it's much cheaper. Can you say that, generally speaking?
A little bit, it's not much difference now. The market is adjusting itself on the east and west coast slowly, and it's pretty much going to be the same, I would say, in the next 3 to 5 years, yes.
Yeah, and I guess it's the diversity of the industry. You can get very high-end, very expensive meals in Montreal, as you can in Vancouver and Toronto. You can also get very inexpensive meals in Vancouver and Montreal and Toronto. So it all depends what you're there. I mean, it's a very difficult business. It's a penny's business, but depending on what your market niche is, that's where you've got to do it. And some of them are very cost, and some of them are very much quality oriented. So it's a very different situation.
Now I made some notes here. For example, one is in Germany we call it Kennzeichnungspflicht.
Labeling, yeah. I can speak to that. Yeah. Actually, here in BC, we're the leader in Canada, where we actually we worked with the government for about 1.5 years, and we now have something called the BC Informed Dining Program, which is a voluntary program. There's credits for smaller companies. There's some grants available from the provincial government to do your menu analysis. And what the program does is it basically makes you put a directional statement on your menu that you have nutrition information on request, and then you have to, at point of sale, be able to give that guest the nutrition information on your menu. It only applies to standardized menu items, and you know, it can be on an electronic format or everything like that. But we find more and more of our guests want to know the nutrition information, and it's not just calories and sodium. Somebody may have a peanut allergy or a gluten allergy, so people are more and more interested in that. And what we're doing at CRFA right now is to try and take this new BC program and launch it right across the country. So there is something in place already. The thing is, it is voluntary. It's not a mandatory thing.
But I mean, Waldemar, do you actually plan to implement that also into your program, teaching about food, like with the labeling, the content?
Definitely, to a certain point. If all the information is accessible to me for free, yeah, yes, I will do that. But at this moment, it's you have to pay for it.
Oh,
like I'm going to mention, for example, one program which is very popular here in Vancouver, and it's being supported by the Vancouver Aquarium, which is the Ocean-Wise program.
Yep.
Which is, I think it's a very good program. It gives you lots of information, but to this point, you have to pay for this, and that's why I kind of have a problem with it, because all those programs, such as the Ocean-Wise program, are great. They are pretty much available to everybody, but you have to pay for information.
It's a good cost, no? But
exactly,
yeah.
Exactly. So I think everybody should get into programs like such for free, to get all the information, to use our local producers, local fish, local farmers, etc.
So that's maybe an idea to publicize it on a website.
Yes.
So there should be someone independent, like, or an independent organization, like your
and
organization.
there is already some.
But you have
examples.
to be a member of the.
Of course. You know, we've talked about the matching services as well. Like there's Farm Folk, City Folk does a great matching service. Restaurants looking for certain vegetables. Well, you know what? Here's a farmer that has these vegetables. I think we can do a lot more of that, so that we can get a lot more farmers and restaurateurs hooked up together. But again, that only solves a percentage of the problem. Some of the big volumes involved, like with a quick service restaurant, that still wouldn't be helpful. But what would be helpful to them is some of the things that are working on right now with QSR codes, so that anything coming from Cisco or GFS, which are the two largest food service distributors, has got a QR code that you just have to scan, and it'll immediately have all the nutrition information available on that. So
a QR code is with a phone, right?
A QR code is so something you can click with a phone. Basically a barcode that you can scan, so that there's now some sort of an information system that is pretty standardized, so that you can tell right away when you're doing your own recipes. It doesn't have to be a nutritional nightmare trying to figure out what it is. You can just take this product and say, I'm using so much of it, and you can do a rough calculation.
I remember from the last exhibition, you have a stage there, and you also give lectures. Cooks, chefs go on stage and they talk about their products, etc. Do you gonna also introduce that kind of ideas?
We're actually just about launching right now our new Conserve program, which is something that we got the idea from the States, which is a big program that we're pushing this year on how to make your restaurant more sustainable. And that has all sorts of implications, everything from lighting to the type of produce that you're getting and your food sources and how renewable everything is. So that program's just starting, and you can do your own self-analysis and where you can do something, and it also saves you money too. If you're doing some of these environmental things, the capital that you might put in initially will very quickly come back to you as far as energy efficient appliances and as far as you know, lighting, and certainly as well on the food side, you know, where you're getting your products. You may pay a little bit more, but if your customers appreciate that you've got really good, wholesome, organic products, they're going to pay that little bit extra, I think, for it as well.
Genetic modified food. What about that? I know that a lot of the foods which is coming, you know, specifically in vegetables and maize, what do you call maize and
corn?
And corn.
Yeah.
It's partially gen modified, at least for the food for the animals.
I would say we cannot avoid this to a certain point, and unless you raise the cattle, the cow,
like free range
by yourself, you cannot control it. That's the sad part of it. You can go to your local growers and get the pig or the cattle organically raised from them. You will pay for it.
I know we would need now a scientist here to answer that question, but what is the problem in eating gen-modified food?
Well, the jury's still out on that. I mean, some people say it's perfectly safe. When they went, I think it was in the 1970s, when they really started doing their crops, because there was much better yields when they're using these genetically modified seeds, I guess it was. So, you know, we've been living with it for 30, 40 years. We're all still pretty alive and well, but there are some scientists that say it's not good for you. And, you know, there's the whole, I can't remember the name for it, Frankenstein food. It's Frankenstein food because we're humans playing too much with what nature intended. But, you know, I think the jury's still very much out on if genetically modified food is that bad for you or not.
I think we see right now the outcome out of this whole thing. 30 years, we start using it and we're still using it. Right now, we're seeing this outcome slowly with lots of intolerance. Like the body's intolerant to wheat, for example, to lactose intolerant. I mean, I would say 6 out of 10 of my customers are intolerant to allergies. Yes, allergies.
Yeah.
We see this slowly coming.
I know that about
more
MSG,
and more.
For example,
and that's
allergy.
what it is. I think we see right now the outcome. Slowly. Yes.
You're totally right. I mean, I hear often from elder people, we had never a problem with our weight, and we ate in our youth a lot of butter. And that's a very German thing, Fassbutter, butter out of the barrel. Fat. It's fatty, but it's healthy compared to margarine. Is that?
It's good fat. It's
good
fat.
fat.
It's good fat, right?
Food is only half the equation. I think the big difference between our elders who lived in Germany and ourselves is, yes, they may have had maybe a higher fat and maybe consume more calories, but they burned a lot more calories as well. They were much more physically active. They walked everywhere. Even to go turn on your TV, you'd go, you know, if you had a TV, you'd go turn it on manually. To change the channel, you'd have to get up and do something. Now we've got buttons and we've got technology, and we're a much more sedentary race than we used to be, or human beings are far more sedentary than we used to be.
Yeah, some more?
World Agriculture, sure, please.
Okay. You see, I put the milk already before that in, so we don't need a spoon. Isn't that great?
Efficient.
Yeah, this is very efficient. So, talking about efficiency, you mentioned that going to the States is not your preference, right? You would look at the label as an example.
Yeah.
If you want to buy food and if it's made in USA, you would at least look at for a second time there.
I try to avoid it, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm
but-
going to be honest.
Yeah, but can you really say generally?
To a certain point,
Yeah.
they put more crap into their stuff.
But there are more people. That's why.
You can still put less stuff into, let's say, a tomato sauce or a vinaigrette, for example. Instead of, you know, a vinaigrette, it's 4 or 5 ingredients. It's not 20 ingredients with cornstarch syrups and sugars and you know, you name it, emulsifiers, you name it, right? So it can be just basic, but you know, because they're producing in mass, metric tons volume, you have to preserve it, right? And it's being distributed through the whole country, and it takes time, and it needs to stay, you know, in a bottle for a couple months, right? And then in the fridge for a couple months, and you will never see mold on top of it, right? So,
True.
And that actually is not just the United States. That's a fact of life, that we have a very globally integrated food supply system right now, where how we do things in Canada may be very, very different than how they do things in Asia or in the United States or Mexico or South America or Europe. It's very different. So what is happening right now in the world is you have all these food inspection agencies, like you've got the Canadian Food Inspection Agency talking to the food safety authorities in the States and all these different countries and trying to come up with protocols so that there's these equivalencies, so that they know whatever we're importing meets our food quality and our food safety standards. But I think, to your point, I think, you know, there's more and more chefs out there that don't want to have that mass-produced food, that they'd really like to, wherever possible, because it's not always possible, to focus more on local products, and that's certainly a big trend.
But isn't local product, to produce local, doesn't that kill the import from countries who are in need to export their products?
I don't think so, because we still need the ingredients, like the cocoa butter, like the cacao, and we need, you know, the spices from India and spices from South America to do the cooking here. I don't think so.
But there are certain realities, for example, in our agricultural policy, where it's really difficult for some of our beef producers, for example, to export their products, because a lot of countries are putting those tariff walls up, because we're very guilty on supply management with dairy and poultry products, which are artificially raised, and you can't import cheese, for example, without a huge tariff, and then the quantity is limited to protect the Canadian farmer. So there's really got to be, I think, a real change as far as agriculture policy is concerned, and now Canada's being forced to have to change those things if they want to get into the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and also with the European talks right now on trade. Obviously, with the French and the EU, agriculture, dairy, and poultry are big exports for them. So we've got to change some of our agricultural policies.
What are the trends, generally speaking, for the future?
Oh, we see already trends happen slowly in Vancouver. It hasn't started on a big scale yet, but slowly, step by step. I think every year we see new restaurants coming with new concepts, fresh, local, fast. It's pretty much fast, healthy food. That's what it is.
So, but if you want your hamburger, you still can get your hamburger.
Oh,
right?
definitely. It's just going to be a nice, beautiful, fresh, grinded beef.
And
hamburger.
double as expensive, I guess.
Not necessarily. No. It's maybe going to be about 25% more than your regular hamburger, but it's going to taste different.
Okay. I hope people will appreciate that.
They will.
Yeah.
They already do. So.
Certainly local is the top thing. And I'd invite your viewers actually to go to our website, www.crfa.ca. We publish every single year our chef survey, which it's a big survey of all chefs right across Canada. What are their 10 big top trends, and also what are their next 10, what they see up and comers. So usually the up and comers become the trends for next year. So rather than getting into all the details there, I just encourage viewers to check out those top 10 and the up and comers, and you'll see we're chefs right across the country, and I think it's very much in line with what you're saying as far as a local, but there's also a number of other trends that we've touched on here today that you can see on the website.
Absolutely. So since you mentioned your website, what is your website?
My website is wcompany.ca, and basically I offer cooking classes in high-end culinary atmosphere.
Yeah. Now that was a good sales pitch. And this is then the end of our show. Thank you very much for watching us. And don't forget, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and check out our website, www.AhornTV.com. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
See you guys next week.